Get ready to hear the truth about America on a show that's not immune to the facts with your host, Dan Bongino.
Thanks for tuning into the podcast this weekend. This is a special podcast we put together for you to enjoy on the weekend. Features some of the interviews we did in the radio show during the week with some of our best guests. You can hear these live during the week in your local radio station. Just go to my website, Bongino.com, and click on Station Finder if you want to find your local station. Before we get to our first interview, let me get to one of our sponsors. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Brickhouse Nutrition and my single favorite nutrition product out there that I had to roll with them. I told them to create this stuff because I love it, Field of Greens. I said to Miles, who owns Brickhouse Nutrition, I said, Miles, I can't eat the fruits and vegetables all the time. They're hard to produce. I got to go cook them, and Paul and I don't have the time. I said, you've got to make the highest quality fruits and vegetables product out there and make it taste good. And that's what he did with this powder called Field of Greens. This is ground up, healthy, wholesome fruits and vegetables. It tastes delicious. This is wild berry. I take it twice a day. I mix it in everything. Protein shakes, green tea, water when I'm in a rush. Anything. Listen, we know proper nutrition is the key to good health. No serious medical professional is going to tell you otherwise. But what's the key to proper nutrition? To rebooting your metabolism, to getting your body running efficiently. Fruits and vegetables, everybody knows that. A healthy diet, everyone knows that. The macro and the micronutrients in there, but they're hard to get and prepare. They're perishable a lot. Sometimes you're not that great of a cook. You don't want to go shopping. This is your fruit and vegetable insurance. I love this stuff. I swear by it myself. It's called Field of Greens. It's been the key to my health. I've been doing great at 48, and I feel a lot better since I started taking it. So you want to give it a shot? Next time you want to see the doc, and the doc says, wow, look, you lost weight. Whatever you're doing, keep it up. Let's get you started today with Field of Greens. And get 15% off your first order. Go to brickhousenutrition.com/Dan. Use promo code Dan. That's brickhousenutrition.com/Dan. Promo code Dan. Pick up Field of Greens today, my single favorite nutrition product out there. You don't have to mix and match pills or anything. Really good. brickhousenutrition.com/Dan. Use promo code Dan. Pick up Field of Greens today. So first up today, we talk with General Mike Flynn about the latest revelations in the Biden document growing scandal, by the way, and putting the pieces together to show you how this is all connected to Ukraine, the Ukraine piggy bank, Soros' group, all of this stuff. It all winds into other countries, how they do business with the United States, the Obama administration. It's such a big scandal. Don't miss this interview. All right, I believe it's the first time we've spoken on my radio show. Certainly not the first time we've spoken, however, or interviewed a real American patriot, a guy who is really got the shaft by the deep state himself, Lieutenant General Mike Flynn. General, welcome to the show. We appreciate your time.
Hey, Dan, thanks very much for having me on. I think this is the first time I've spoken to your radio show, so thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So you have been a victim of probably the biggest deep state plot of all. I want you just to lay out, I'm going to lay out my theory about you while you're here, and I want you to tell me where I'm going wrong and why you were such a danger to what we call the deep state. I don't really care what people call deep state, the silly state. It doesn't really matter. But there is a crew of people on the inside who clearly hated you. So you ran the DIA, one of the largest intelligence operations and most important anywhere in the world. You were a senior intelligence official with the Obama administration. We know you objected to the Iran deal, which probably drew the ire of a lot of people in Obama's team who thought dealing with the Iranians somehow was a good idea. And secondly, you've exposed a lot of the failures of the intelligence community as a senior, and I mean senior intelligence official yourself. You weren't afraid to say, hey, here's where we're going wrong. Is that what's made you a target since about 2015 of deep state people who seem to want to do anything to shut you up and make you go away?
Yeah, I would say you're right on the money there, Dan. And there's a few other areas that have to do with black budgets and other operations that the nation is involved in that they knew I was aware of and probably would have, as a national security advisor, would have exposed and certainly would have in some cases stopped because they're just so corrupt. But yeah, those are a couple of the key areas that why they came after me.
And one of the parts of the whole Russia hoax Spygate thing, where you're obviously a central figure for all the wrong reasons and by no fault of your own, One of the reasons I find your story particularly fascinating is Barack Obama, when he speaks to Donald Trump during this transition period, there's only one individual he mentions by name, according to reports. I wasn't in the room, but there's a lot of reporting out there. Anyone can read about this. And that individual is you. He was so concerned about you being Donald Trump's national security advisor that your specific name came up. This guy was really scared of you getting in the Trump administration and breaking the deep state down.
Yeah, and two names actually, me and Kim Jong-un from North Korea. So,
right. That's correct.
That story has been told, and I would just say that again, I was twice appointed by Barack Obama to two really important jobs. One up in the Director of National Intelligence Office, and also, as you mentioned, the Director of the Defense Intelligence Agency, and twice fully confirmed by the United States Senate. And then a year later, they're going after me. Very, very hard. And part of it is because of what I knew and what I was asking the intelligence community to provide, especially once Donald Trump won the 2016 presidency, and then I was appointed as a national security advisor. Obviously, the things that you do as a national security advisor and what you have responsibility for and oversight of. One of the things I have said, Dan, that had I stayed in that role as national security advisor to the United States, there would have never been a Mueller investigation. So I don't say that, loosely. I say that very matter of factly because for instance, those types of FISA requests come across the national security advisor's desk. Had I not departed the White House, and I say this very pointedly, there would have the likelihood of no Mueller investigation. So I want your audience to understand that. That's a huge statement. There would have been no Mueller investigation had I not left the White House the way I did. And I don't blame. If I was to blame Donald Trump, I probably wouldn't be talking to you. I'd be out there, fighting with the left somehow. But I know exactly what we're up against, Dan. I know what we're facing. But one of the reasons why I think I'm on your show today, and we can talk about it here, is some other things that have become exposed because of information that's come out. But there is a real effort by a sort of globalist elite, if you will, to take over the United States of America. And frankly, Donald Trump got in the way. And when in 2016, when the shock heard round the world, I think was the 8th of November that year, Donald Trump won the United States presidency, and beat the heir-appointed Hillary Clinton. People couldn't believe it, and they then needed to go full bore and try to take him out. So you've been amazing. You and a couple others, that have been really on it from the beginning. And I know your audience knows this, because you do it in a very humble way. But the story is still unfolding, Dan, and it's because we're learning more and more about things, partially because of these the Twitter files that are now coming out, more stuff that comes out through Hunter Biden's laptop, which is just amazing. I mean, it's incredible that what we've learned just from that. And also there are a lot of people that continue to fight these FOIA requests, right? I mean, Tom Fitton is one in Judicial Watch. And so people that keep fighting for this information to be broken free from the grips of our deep state government, we're going to learn even more. And we're not done. So this story is not being told. What happened to me, I think, is a travesty. I am not going to let it define me. I have stood up for this country for, damn near 3.5 decades of my life, and I'm still willing to stand up for this country. And I am right now in another way, and on another path that I'm following. So this is something that every person in this country, your audience for sure, because of the way you talk about it, knows exactly what I'm talking about. And we will not relent. We will not give up.
Yeah. We're talking to Lieutenant General Mike Flynn, a genuine American patriot and hero, unfortunately targeted by a number of deep state actors. General, you had mentioned these global elitists and this conspiracy. And I'm sure the natural impulse of the maniacal moonbat left is to scream, well, that's a conspiracy theory, which is interesting because it is a conspiracy, but it most certainly is not theoretical. I just like your thoughts on this in general. I mean, I'm going to get into a couple of specifics, but no need to comment on any one thing specifically here. There is a group of global elites working to influence policy in the United States and worldwide. Using the impeachment hoax as an example, Joe Biden's kid, we know, is over in Hunter Biden is over in Ukraine collecting money from very wealthy global elitists. While he's over there, the vice president who targeted you, who was indicated by the FBI, it was his idea to pursue you for the Logan Act, by the way. The vice president, at the same time, is the point man in Ukraine. Our embassy in Ukraine is then working with a George Soros-funded group. It's not a conspiracy theory. It happened. The George Soros-funded group then has a prosecute and do not prosecute list of people who we're going to support the U.S. in prosecuting. One of them is his business rival. And then the lady running the group meets with the whistleblower at the White House. The lady running the Soros group meets with the whistleblower at the White House while this whole fiasco is going on. And then this whistleblower thing happens where Trump is trying to expose what happened in Ukraine. So the idea that people around the world are working with officials here in the United States to decimate our constitutional republic is not a conspiracy theory. It's a conspiracy, but it ain't theoretical.
It ain't theoretical, exactly. You know, and this is, people can go do their own research, and I know that you bring to light a lot of information where people can go, because I think you say it a lot. You know, don't take my word for it. Listen to what they say. Yeah,
please.
And so, you know, what this really sort of 60,000 foot level, this is America. This is an America First agenda versus this globalist New World Order agenda. And it's very real. I mean, they just recently had another one of these Davos summits with the World Economic Forum. These are real people that, you know, in the likes of a guy like Klaus Schwab, George Soros, Bill Gates. I mean, we even had members of our own administration go over there. I mean, Christopher Wray was one, I guess, that he went over there and spoke. God knows why he did. But these are real people. They have a real agenda, and their agenda is a globalist system of government with unelected bureaucratic organizations like the World Bank, the World Health Organization, the World Trade Organization, the International Monetary Fund, the United Nations. The European Union is sort of a test bed for them, and they've really they've done some interesting things there. The BRICS is another organization that's part of it: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And there's about 8 or 10 more countries that have now aligned with the BRICS to really change the financial order of the world. So these are real things. I want people to go to the World Economic Forum website. Don't listen to Mike Flynn. Go to their own website and look at what some of their goals and objectives are to create this thing they call the New World Order. Klaus Schwab wrote a book on it called The Great Reset in 2019. So these are things that are real, conspiracy or not. There are competing ideologies globally, and there always has been. You know, this idea of capitalism versus communism, and all these things. But now we're talking about sort of what I call America is the last redoubt. And if we fall, then, you know, where do you go, so to speak? And these folks, these people that are real, they have every intention to basically recreate America in what they want to create it as, not a America First kind of agenda that a Donald Trump pushes. And, you know, America First, for most people, America First as a governing philosophy has been around a long time. It's been around well before Donald Trump. He's just put a really big stamp on it in a very positive way, because it's like anybody, you know, you take care of your home first, you take care of your family first. Well, why the hell shouldn't we take care of America first? And then the rest of the world can prosper. So anyway, that's kind of the 60,000 foot level. It's very real. These are real people, and they have a real agenda. And we are in the midst of I call it 5th generation warfare, but we're in the midst of it. And the competing narratives that we have, you know, we're trying to fight through it every day. And thank God that we have people like yourself and there's other independent voices out there that are pushing the truth and then letting people decide for themselves. Because at the end of the day, you know, the truth hurts, but also the truth fears no questions.
Yeah. We're talking to Lieutenant General Mike Flynn. Sorry, I unfortunately have about a minute and a half left, so I hate to ask you this in a limited amount of time, but this group, Hamilton 68, that claimed a lot of us conservatives were Russian bots and pushed Twitter and the media to censor people. Some of the people in this group you worked with, Mike Morrell, Michael Chertoff. I worked with Michael Chertoff. I protected Michael Chertoff on his detail. Yeah. I was on his actual detail. This is just shameful. I mean, an abuse of your position to falsely malign American citizens as traitors to the country as Russians. Your thoughts as a former insider about what they did here.
Yeah. So first of all, I know at least 75% of them, either having worked with them or knew them and spoken to them personally at different times. So this is probably one of the biggest deceptions that we have had imposed on the United States of America by a group of people. And it started back in, once Trump won, I think this group started in 2017, if I'm not mistaken. But once Trump won, they formed this organization to basically create the big lie. And then this was the group, talk about misinformation. They're the ones that are supposed to be, they tout, we're going to, defeat misinformation. This group is the one that created an ungodly amount of misinformation and fed narratives to all of the mainstream media. So all the talking heads, all the parrots out there would spew these lies. And it, again, more information is going to come out. It's coming out in droves right now. And we're going to find out exactly what they did to this country, because at the end of the day, Dan, all of these people need to be held accountable. And I think that accountability is coming. Thank God we won the House of Representatives this past election, and a few other people out in the states, in some of the state legislatures. But this weaponization subcommittee that's been formed by the House of Representatives under McCarthy is very, very smart, and they're going to have to be very tough, and they're going to have to prioritize to go after some of these people.
General, I got to run, but I just want to make a quick suggestion before we go here. If Donald Trump were to win in 2024, you should be immediately appointed the National Security Advisor. You don't have to comment on that. That's just Dan Bongino's humble opinion. General, thanks a lot for your time. As always, you're a real American patriot. You deserve what you went through is absolutely inexcusable, but you handled it with decorum and dignity, unlike some of your attackers did. Thanks for your time, sir.
God bless, Dan. Thank you to your audience, too. Thanks.
You got it, sir. Lieutenant General Mike Flynn, a guy who tried to call out what was going on at the intelligence community years ago, and they tried to take him out because of it. That was General Mike Flynn on a scandal that continues to explode. Up next, we talk with Congresswoman Lauren Boebert. Let's hear from our next sponsor first. Birch Gold, despite the U.S. blowing through the $31.4 trillion debt ceiling in January, the leftist White House still refuses to reduce spending. Our national leadership has buried their heads in the sand when it comes to fiscal responsibility. That's why I use Birch Gold. Diversify into gold with Birch Gold, BIRCH. I've been a customer of them repeatedly. Proud to say it. Times of high uncertainty and instability, gold is dependable. Birch Gold makes it easy to convert an IRA or 401k into an IRA in precious metals. Just text Dan, my first name, to 989898. That's 989898 to claim your free info kit on gold, and then talk to one of their precious metals specialists. They'll walk you right through it. Think about this. To dig our country out of this mountain of debt, every single taxpayer in America would have to write a check for $247,000. And it's only getting worse. Protect yourself with gold today by texting Dan to 989898. With an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau and thousands of happy customers, Birch Gold is who I trust to protect my future and yours. Text Dan to 989898 today. Past performance not a guarantee of future results. Message and data rates apply. Here's Lauren Boebert weighing in on the Biden document scandal and about keeping promises to keep people like Adam Schiff and Swalwell off committees they shouldn't be serving on anyway. You don't want to miss this. All right, I'd like to welcome back to the show one of my favorite people in Congress. We owe her a debt of gratitude with the other 19 who stood up in the speaker's race and got some really good conservative concessions that are already paying dividends. Welcoming back to the show, Congresswoman Lauren Boebert. Congresswoman, thanks for taking some time. We appreciate it.
Dan, it's so great to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. So, we had some hacks and goons in the media, losing their minds over the speaker's fight, saying, oh, the public's never going to forget. Everybody was melting down, peeing their diapers or whatever. As predicted, of course, the public did forget. The people move on. And you guys, you and the other 19, the brave 20 who stood up, got some really great concessions. And I have to say, and a hat tip to the speaker, who, if he, we're going to keep him in check. That's what we do here. But he booted Adam Schiff and Eric Swalwell off those committees.
Yes.
So, we're going to keep him in check. I know you are. But that was kind of a good development. You can't have these guys in these committees. They're national security threats.
They absolutely are. And, this isn't anything that's political. This is for the security of our nation. If it was political, they wouldn't be serving on any committees, just like Nancy Pelosi did to Republicans in the last Congress. So this outrage that they have over being taken off of these significant committees where they could do a lot of damage to our country is completely bogus. And how rich is it that Ilhan Omar is standing at a press conference with Eric Smells Not So Well and Adam Schiff talking about their committee assignments being taken from them when she called for me to be removed from committees in the last Congress. Just the hypocrisy is always on full display when it comes to these goons on the left. This is justice. The Democrats have set the precedent. They have already made it clear that they'll remove people from committees, and we're just trying to protect our nation from people who are a threat.
Yeah, Congresswoman, the Democrats. Not all of them. I mean, I don't like to paint with a broad brush. They do that to us. There's some in there who are sensible. If very few, unfortunately, but some of them.
Sure, we
mostly
could give
they're morons.
Henry Cuellar, he's pretty cool.
Yeah, he's probably it. Maybe it. I mean, the rest are really tier 1 level imbeciles. I mean, it's not as if we didn't warn them. They overrode the judicial filibuster at the appeals court level. At the appellate level, and we warned them. We said to Harry Reid at the time, who was the leader of the Democrats in the Senate, we said, if you do this, then we are going to dump the filibuster for the Supreme Court, and it's going to kick you in the nuts. They didn't listen. And then we warned them on this, too. If you're going to push for Congresswoman Boebert or Paul Gosar, Marjorie Taylor Greene, or anyone else to be kicked off committees, Congresswoman, they were warned. They said, you're setting a dangerous precedent that's going to come back, and now it bites them in the ass, and then we're all acting surprised. And here's the irony. I'm sorry, I don't mean to drone on, but you have Adam Schiff, this lunatic, whining on TikTok, a Chinese Communist Party connected app, and then begging for money while claiming we're fundraising off it. I mean, the irony is just delicious.
Yes, well, you reap what you sow. And then, with the House Intel Committee, this is completely different. Members who have a history of leaking, lying, and being in bed with Chinese spies do not qualify for that committee.
100%. Yeah, 100%. I'm glad you emphasized that. I mean, yes, listen, it is D.C. and politics are ugly and they were warned, but you're 100% correct. And that's why I started out with the national security angle, because I'm being, serious as a heart attack here. You cannot have a guy who may have compromised national security secrets to what appears to be a Chinese spy named Fang Fang on an intel community. They've already shown you they're not trustworthy. Let's move on to some other stuff. One of the other things you and the Brave 19 got accomplished in the speaker fight, which, again, we were told was going to contaminate our politics forever. And as predicted, no one even remembers it anymore. As I said, one of the other things you guys fought for, and ladies, is some fiscal restraint. We're going bankrupt. We're $30 trillion in debt. It won't be a formal bankruptcy. We can print money, but it will be a de facto one through inflation. Your money will just be worth nothing. How do you see the debt ceiling debate, which is getting hotter by the day now as we get closer to some serious deadlines, progressing? I had, I think it was Jim Jordan on, and he insisted that they were going to hold the line. How do you feel about that?
Yes. So when it's said that we're going to hold the line, I think we've proven that we mean it. We were able to get amazing concessions out of the speaker's race, one of them being a balanced budget being brought to the floor. But before we do that, we do have to deal with this debt ceiling issue that's at hand. Democrats went through a complete spending spree in the name of COVID, in the name of a pandemic. And now here we are hitting our debt ceiling again that was just raised. We brought in a record $4.9 trillion into the Treasury. And it shows that Washington, D.C. does not have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem. So there absolutely has to be serious cuts. And I think some of the things that I'm floating out there, we're all getting together and organizing our thoughts on this. But one of the things I'm floating is, first of all, take that $600 billion that's left over, that unspent COVID money that was approved by Congress, and put that towards it. We certainly need to end the COVID emergency, because there are people who are still on Medicaid that cannot be kicked off Medicaid. They could be working, able-bodied adults working, and they are not able to be kicked off Medicaid because of the COVID emergency.
And Congresswoman, sorry to interrupt, but these are people who are well above the income limits. In other words, even if you believe that the government is doing a good, which I don't, doing a good job with these health care programs for the poor, that's not the people currently on the program due to the emergency. These are people who have enough funds to do with their own health insurance, and they're actually taking money. I always use the analogy of a handicapped parking space. If someone who is not handicapped parks in the space, you are taking it away from someone who's going to need it. That's the point.
Right.
I mean, money is not,
yes.
we can't just keep spending it like that. Let me ask you something else. I only got a few minutes with you. You're talking to one of the good guys or good ladies, in this case, Congresswoman Lauren Boebert, we love on the show. A lot of people out there are concerned about the vaccine. I like to keep this argument based in reason and science. There's a lot of negative stories. I'm sure some might be hyperbolic, but it's very clear now that people have been hiding the extent of these side effects. Do you sense a possibility in this new Congress of getting some of these executives under oath up there on Capitol Hill? Because, Congresswoman, the American people deserve the truth. If there's a danger there that the government's hiding that we don't know about, that tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people have been affected, I'd like to see some people deposed here under oath up on Capitol Hill, and people like you asking legitimate, fact-based questions of them.
Yes, so we are absolutely going to subpoena these folks who mandated this vaccine and also promoted it. I mean, this is something that we're seeing an effect from. My colleague, Congressman Troy Nehls, he's introduced the China Lied People Died Act to make the CCP repay the United States $4.6 trillion in federal COVID relief. And so we are absolutely going to be bringing folks in and making them answer to what is going on with these vaccines. Also, we have the China Task Force that's going to not just look into the origins of COVID, because, I think we've figured that one out. Certainly there will be some discussion there. But we want to see government's mishandling of COVID and everything that they did with the lockdowns, with the mask mandates, with the vaccine mandates. But this is very, very troublesome, especially since so many people want to hide this and shove it under the rug and not talk about the one thing in common that all of these people who are having complications and even losing their lives have in common. This is the one thing, the one denominator that is there, and everyone is afraid to say it. They're afraid to come out and say, well, is it the vaccine? What effect did the vaccine have to cause this? So this is something the Oversight Committee is going to be looking into, likely the weaponization of the Federal Government Committee and certainly the China Task Force. And two of those committees are part of our concessions with Speaker McCarthy. And so we have those committees set in place that are going to be fully funded and resourced so we can not only have the hearings and investigations, but be able to hold these people accountable.
Oh, that is really, really refreshing to hear. We're talking to Congresswoman Lauren Boebert. Last question for you. I always appreciate your time. These documents, Tom Cotton was on, I saw him on Fox this morning, Senator from Arkansas, on our side of the aisle. And what I believe to be a really solid move on his part, he's threatening to basically uphold the confirmation process if we don't get a look at what is in the classified documents that were held by both allegedly Donald Trump, because he's disputing the classification, of course, but that's another story, and Joe Biden, who no one's disputing the classification. Now, I find it awfully odd, Congresswoman, that they don't want you to see what's in these documents. Now, my next segment, when you're gone, I'm going to play a cut here from Miranda Devine. Wouldn't it be awfully interesting if some of the information in those classified documents that they won't let the Senate look at was in fact in some emails Hunter Biden was exchanging with foreign countries? Now, we don't know that, but there's an easy way to clear it up, right? To get a look at the documents. Your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, go Senator Cotton. We deserve to have answers on this, and I'm really proud of him for taking the lead in this and making sure that we know exactly what's there. But with these classified documents, the real concern to me is the double standard. Democrats are searched and Republicans are raided. The White House is dodging questions on this. They really seem to be hiding something. One question I want answered is why did the DOJ wait until after the midterms to bring this forward? Why do all of these people who don't have the authority to have classified documents in their possession have them? And could we have stopped this if we would have actually prosecuted Hillary Clinton whenever she was found with classified documents and deleted 33,000 emails? And probably, the biggest regret that any Democrat has right now is Joe Biden himself and the fact that he didn't use bleach bit or a hammer.
Yeah, that's such a great point about Hillary Clinton. I think a lot of people have yet to make that. If we would have established the precedent early that this is not acceptable behavior and engaged in even a prosecution, even if it didn't involve jail time, but involved a serious effort to get to the truth, you likely wouldn't have this. And I like your other point as well. And all you guys out there should listen to what the Congresswoman just said. Democrats get searched. Republicans get raided. Unacceptable. Unacceptable. Congresswoman Lauren Boebert, thanks for fighting a good fight. It's already paying massive dividends. I am going to continue to thank you guys for what you did. It was a rare act of bravery up on Capitol Hill, and we're always happy to have you.
It was an honor to stand with my colleagues who were in the fight until the end. We have some amazing people up here, and thank you so much for all of your support and for all of your listener support. It means the world to us all. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Happy to do it. Take care, Congressman. Thanks for your time.
Bye, Dan.
You go, folks. One of the good guys, or good ladies, as I should say. That's a great line, right, Jim? Republicans get searched. Democrats get searched. Republicans get raided. It's so true. That was Congresswoman Boebert. Up next is Matt Palumbo. He wrote the book, The Man Behind the Curtain, about George Soros. Been a bestseller. We'll get to that in a second. Let me tell you about our next sponsor first. Folks, what's your gift this Valentine's Day? How about taking 10 or 15 years off your appearance with Genucel Skincare and their most popular package? And right now, every most popular package is 70% off and includes the next breakthrough in skincare technology, Genucel's probiotic moisturizer, my mother-in-law's favorite, absolutely free. These super ingredients found in yogurt can have the same nourishing benefits and goodness for your skin. Probiotic extracts can help target bad bacteria on the surface of your skin and can help restore balance to your skin's microbiome for a noticeably clearer complexion and visibly younger appearance. See those fine lines, wrinkles, dark spots, sagging jawlines, and even bags and puffiness visibly disappear right before your eyes thanks to Genucel. Trust me, my mother-in-law loves this stuff. She says her go-to skincare with Genucel, Genucel. Plus, with its immediate effects, see results in under 12 hours, guaranteed, or your money back. Go to Genucel.com/Dan. That's Genucel.com/Dan right now. For the first time ever, every order at Genucel.com, at Genucel.com/Dan from now until Valentine's Day includes a beauty box with 2 luxury gifts, yours free. Order now, 2 weeks only, Genucel.com/Dan, Genucel.com/Dan. That's Genucel.com/Dan. Here's Matt Palumbo discussing George Soros' shady operations and his donations to soft-on-crime prosecutors and what this all means. Check it out. Matt Palumbo, one of the finest authors out there, he wrote the book called The Man Behind the Curtain, the definitive account of George Soros' role in not just politics, but law enforcement, street chaos. The book was a mega hit, is back up on the charts. Matt, people have shown a real interest in this book. I saw the New York Post had one of your pieces on the front page. I think everybody's starting to wake up to just how damaging this guy's been.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It seems like every single week there is a new story out where, it's a Law and Order type story where it seems like a parody of reality, like a sort of Franz Kafka-esque story. So the latest was this prosecutor, Boebert, out of Loudoun County, and she was just sort of the latest Soros-backed prosecutor to announce she wouldn't be enforcing the law. So I just thought, it's a perfect opportunity to, detail the latest, craziness and how it's sort of emblematic of everything Soros has been up to lately.
Folks, the book, again, it's called The Man Behind the Curtain. There's a lot of stuff in there I think it's really going to surprise you about exactly what Soros has been up to. I know one of the things, Matt, you've been addressing lately about Soros is the left is so afraid of us asking questions. Now, keep in mind, the left has no problem asking questions about donors they don't like, even donors who aren't really conservative, like the Koch brothers, who are more libertarian, right? But if you donate to a cause they don't like, then you are immediately to be hung from your toenails, never to be accepted in polite company again, and, harassed for the rest of your life. But when we ask questions about people like Soros, who unquestionably, we have the money trail, have given money to prosecutors who have lorded over street chaos, all of a sudden the line is what? This is definitely anti-Semitic. It's so predictable with these idiots.
No, I was saying there's like a war on noticing, and you see this actually in any headline where Democrats do something wrong. The headline is never phrased as like, "Hey, this Democrat did something wrong." It's sort of phrased in this phrasing of "get a load of these Republicans for noticing they did something wrong." Like they phrase us as the bad
Republicans
guys.
Pounce. That's the whole Republicans Pounce thing.
Yeah. So with these Soros prosecutors, and I reported in the New York Post article, there's about 75 of them nationwide. Fortunately, one of them, Chesa Boudin, got recalled. But Soros has backed them with $40 million, and he's donated over his lifetime $32 billion. And I don't think, having researched his empire, I don't think he's ever gotten this kind of bang for his buck, because now 1 in 5 Americans live in an area where they are beholden to a Soros prosecutor. When Soros is donating tens of millions for presidential elections, the silver lining when he backs like John Kerry or Clinton is, well, at least he incinerated that money. Here is going to a very bad cause. And the latest person I mentioned is Boebert. She's sort of, I thought it was emblematic of all of them. And her latest thing is, well, we're not going to enforce lower level laws because then we can enforce, we can spend more time prosecuting rape and murder. And the exact phrasing she used is, I don't want to be prosecuting speeding tickets. So I look in the list of, okay, well, what are these crimes that you're not going to prosecute? Speeding tickets, I don't see in the list, but I see eluding police, hit and run, public intoxication, and failure to appear. So you can flee the police and it's not a crime. And if you do get charged by police and don't show up to court, that's apparently also not a crime. So even with these extremely, quote unquote, low level crimes, in her words, not being enforced, there is going to be a crazy ripple effect. And then, the other half of the equation that, we are told, well, if we don't prosecute small crimes, we have more resources for bigger crimes. And it's sort of like with masks. If they work, why isn't it working? We have 75 prosecutors that are not enforcing these low-level crimes, and the other half where there's enforcement on more violent crimes never happens. And, of course, they lied to us. They were never going to do that. But, the increase in murder nationally is the most pronounced in these cities that are claiming to adopt this philosophy. So, the best evidence against it is them themselves.
We're talking to Matt Palumbo with a P, author of the book about George Soros. That is piquing a lot of interest. Front page of New York Post, man. It's called The Man Behind the Curtain about George Soros. Matt, you were on Fox and Friends the other day. I was up at, 4 o'clock in the morning watching you. You looked up. Did you have some coffee or something? You looked rather awake. I was surprised.
I woke up an hour and a half early so the coffee would digest. But, yeah, I was very awake, fortunately.
Because he was on Fox and Friends first, and it was legit, like 4:15 or something. I turn it on. I'm like, oh, look, there's Matt. So Matt and I worked together at this place. He manages BonginoReport.com. Had the greatest headline ever the other day. Nancy Pelosi does an exorcism at her house and magically survives. That was great. Very funny. I actually texted you in the weekend. But I'm like, gosh, this guy looks awake. And one of the reasons is I know you genuinely like talking about this topic of Soros because it speaks to a larger leftist ideology. And you brought up this great point. You said, bang for the buck, Soros funding local prosecutors is the greatest deal ever. Like, why bother to overturn an entire city council, a state assembly, a governor's race or a mayor's race, which could cost you tens of millions, when you could spend probably $500,000, get a prosecutor in there who says, hey, I don't really care what laws you Republicans or Democrats pass. I'm just going to get my guy in, and he's not going to enforce anything we don't like. It was such a brilliant point.
Yeah, I hate to say that Soros is brilliant for figuring that out, but unfortunately it is. And the thing, too, is, like, these are not exactly high-profile races. So you can put, it's very hard to buy a presidential candidate because there's billions spent. But you can buy a DA's race for a couple $100,000. Or there was actually cases I had in the book where he donated so much money to a candidate the opponent just dropped out instead of even bothering to compete. So yeah, and the success rate's 90+%, which is, I mean, for any category of anything really, is spectacular, unfortunately.
Talking to Matt Palumbo, author of the George Soros book, The Man Behind the Curtain. Matt, I didn't, I don't give you the questions in advance or anything, of course, and I know you think on your feet, but this is a tough one. I don't know if you have an easy answer to this. I can speculate only, but the question I get from listeners about Soros and his activities in politics and the media, and hopefully we'll get to that in a second. You did a piece in the New York Post about that too, but is why? I mean, I get why he likes liberal ideas. He's a liberal. He was, he probably believes for some stupid reason they work. High taxes, crappy public schools. But the public safety situation, he's not a dumb guy. He's a billionaire. He's not stupid. So he knows that these DAs and prosecutors he's getting elected are not enforcing crime. He sees the numbers. They're undeniable numbers, crime rates going up. So clearly it speaks to me to a volitional act. It's not an accident. So why is he doing it?
Yeah, I mean, it is obviously a tough question because I'm not in his head. And, I always feel like it's sort of a lazy answer to say, my political opponents are evil and want to destroy the country. But that is the most plausible explanation. I mean, when I was writing the book, I read everything Soros has written, which a lot of it's business and finance, and that was my background. And he's a very smart guy, a very original thinker. He knows exactly how to look at data, and it is undeniable what's happened. So, the question becomes, well, what exactly is the end goal? Is it, does he want to, demonize police to federalize police? Does he think that destroying the country will somehow make people more receptive to future leftist ideas? I mean, that could be one explanation. But yeah, this is one of those cases where, I generally try to give people the benefit of the doubt and assume they mean well. With Soros, that could not be said at all. And even with the non-law and order stuff, most of it's just self-serving. One of the founding myths of George Soros that some neoliberals will give is that he helped a lot of post-Soviet countries transition away from communism to capitalism. And, that almost seems right-wing. And then you look at what was actually going on, and he was just in bed with corrupt regimes buying up their assets for pennies on the dollar. And that was sort of rebranded as some capitalist endeavor. So, yeah, everything about the guy's a fraud, and I do generally think he's an evil person.
Yeah, and listen, I've known Matt a long time. I mean, gosh, I met Matt. I was sick one night in my house, and some guy sent me an article, and I thought it was written by like a 50-year-old. And I remember Matt, I was like guest hosting WBAL. I'm like, well, how old are you? I don't even know how old you were. Maybe like 19 or something. I'm like, holy Moses, you're super smart. I had him on. That's how long I've known this guy. And you're a very kind of reserved guy, and I think you're correct. I think when you run out of implausible explanations, you have to apply Occam's razor here. You have to accept the explanation with the least amount of assumptions. That the guy is just an evil guy who just doesn't like the United States. I mean, there's no other explanation for the guy's activities. Let me get to one. I don't want to leave this out, though, Matt. You wrote the piece in the New York Post, and I know you cover extensively in the book as well. Soros has really, really deep ties to media people. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's real. He funds organizations, and a lot of these media people sit on the boards of some of these organizations. That can't possibly be ethical. There's no way you can be an independent journalist reporting on Soros if Soros is funding organizations you're a part of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the thing is, too, so basically the way it works is he'll fund a think tank or, an activist organization, and the way I link them is just if they sat on the board and also worked for a media company, I say they're linked. And the way I prove it in the book and the article is I just say, all right, look at these people, look who they work for, and then just do a search on their website for Soros' name and what is the coverage like. And it's always either A, defending him, or B, presenting his critics in some sort of negative light. And generally speaking, the most common criticism is that it's anti-Semitic. It's as if a memo went out and just said, you know what, just say this and that's good enough. But yeah, there's a major conflict of interest. And that's, actually part of the large reason why any criticism of Soros is branded a conspiracy is, ironically, this is a media conspiracy, I suppose.
Yeah, and it's just the tricks that they use are so basic and stupid and juvenile. Like, any criticism is got to be anti-Semitic. I can guarantee you, A large number of people who criticize this guy, one, don't care, and other people don't even know he's I don't even, who cares? There's nothing to do with the debate at all. Zero. It's like, my wife's Colombian, not from South Carolina, from the country of Colombia. My wife is a right winger. She's a conservative. If you criticize her, I get to say, oh, you're definitely anti-Hispanic. You don't like brown people. It's so juvenile. I know, maybe we should. It's right. Matt, I'm going to get another promo in for the book. The book is excellent, folks. It was a bestseller. It's going to be a bestseller again. It's called The Man Behind the Curtain. It's about George Soros, and I promise you, there's stuff in there you have not heard and have not seen before. The guy is up to some no good stuff. Matt, thanks a lot for your time. We appreciate it.
My pleasure, Dan. Thanks for talking.
That was Matt Palumbo, again, author of the book, The Man Behind the Curtain. We'd like to thank our final sponsor for bringing this podcast to you. Protect yourself with the VPN I trust. Listen, does it make sense that the company who controls half of online retail also passively eavesdrops on your private conversations at home? What about the idea that a single company controls 90% of internet searches and gets to track everything you do on your smartphone? That's no good. Big tech profits by exploiting your personal data. Ladies and gentlemen, if something's free online, that means you're the product. Put a layer of protection between your online activity and these big tech juggernauts. Use ExpressVPN. Sadly, every site you visit, video you watch, or message you send gets tracked and data mined. But when you run ExpressVPN on your device, the software hides your IP address, making your activity harder to trace and sell to publishers. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your internet data to keep you safe from hackers on your network. Doesn't slow your connection. That's why it's rated the #1 VPN by Mashable and TechRadar. Download the app on your phone or computer. Tap one button, and you're protected. Protect yourself with the VPN I trust. Visit expressvpn.com/Bongino, Bongino, and get an extra 3 months free on a 1-year package. That's expressvpn.com/Bongino. Thanks for listening to this special Sunday podcast we put together for you. You can hear me every weekday across the country on over 300 radio stations. Just go to Bongino.com. Click on Station Finder to find out where I'm on near you. Thanks a lot for listening.
You just heard The Dan Bongino Show.